Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. Angron is a trap. Okay, what is up, everyone? Now that you've been baited in by our cold open, I'm here with Jack today, and we are going to be talking about all the fantastic new rules for the World Leaders. Today's video is going to be specifically about our army rules. So, the mechanics that we get for being a World Leaders army, the Blood Tithe, and the other one whose name escapes me right now, Relentless Fury, or something like that. Anyway. That's it. I was close. You know, you're going to say enough of the angry words and you'll get it right. It's really exciting, though. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of excitement and discussion going on around this at time of recording. But we're going to give our kind of quick fire thoughts, our initial concepts and ideas that we're throwing around. So, Jack, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. You're going into this largely blind, right? You've seen some stuff on Discord, but
Sort of. Yeah, blind in one eye. I've got my pirate patch on. Yeah. So I haven't had time to properly watch the battle report. Like I watched it in work today while I was doing experiments and stuff. So I wasn't watching it. Yeah, right. So, but like having spoken to you and kind of quickly scrolling through summaries and messages and stuff like that, I've gotten a pretty good idea of the things that have happened. I am still going to watch it myself, just to watch it because it's awesome and Angron looks really cool in the pictures that I've seen. Like he's so skinny compared to what I thought, but that's whatever. So yeah, it's awesome. Are you hyped? Because I'm so
I'm
hyped.
so hyped. Like
Yeah,
rules
these
and like even talking just now in the like pre-show stuff, like
there's a
man,
lot to talk about, right?
man.
Yeah, yeah. So safe to say, GW have really done a pretty good job in, I think, giving us a unique identity with
Yeah.
this book. Obviously, we don't know everything just yet. We still don't know the full scope of it. But from what we've seen from this battle report, the rules that are previewed, I honestly think that we're diverging pretty hard from
Yeah.
baseline Space Marines, and in the same way that Death Guard and Thousand Suns have, in a really good way.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a broad limb before we dive into things and say that aside from Custodes, we are probably the most elite power armored
Mm.
army in the game.
Maybe.
It's a big statement,
That is a
but
big
I think
statement.
it's not incorrect based on the amount of rules that one data sheet can potentially have by the end of a game in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
World Leaders.
yeah, yeah.
So, shall we dive in?
Yes. So
Fantastic.
the first army rule, which we're kind of going to gloss over because it's honestly not that interesting. It's just solid, like it's decent. Is Relentless Rage, which is basically our Legion trait by the looks of things, and it is basically Mark of Khorne and our current Legion trait combined. So +1 strength, +1 stat, first round of combat.
So it's better than Mark of Corn though, because it goes on units that don't have to have the mark,
That is true.
right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty good on some
Yeah.
units.
So we're not going to have. It looks like we're departing from the marks system just because there's not really
Praise
much
be.
point. Yeah, so that's Relentless Rage. It's as I say, it's nothing too interesting, but it's a nice like multiplier, right? It makes us hit harder in combat, which is what we want to do. Yeah. So
It'll mean that we don't necessarily go down from where we were in terms
yeah,
of strength and volume for a lot of the units that we're used to using. And some units which we may have used before, like Demon Engines, will now actually have these bonuses. Looking at you, Brass Scorpion.
yeah, yeah. So, but I think the main reason people will have clicked onto this video, apart from to see our beautiful faces and hear us talk about how Angron is a trap, is the blood type mechanic. It's been fairly hotly anticipated. I think it's fair to say.
Yep,
Um, so I guess let's just dive straight in. The
let's
way
do it.
the way we generate blood type points. So you gain one blood type point (BTP) per unit destroyed, and then in addition, at the end of any phase where you've destroyed or where a character, monster, or vehicle unit has been destroyed, either side, you also gain an additional blood type point. So that means the first one of those models in each phase destroyed is worth 2. Subsequent ones are worth 1, so there's some thought about like spreading stuff out there. The last part of it is any phase. Similarly, any phase where a Titanic unit is destroyed, you gain an additional Blood Tithe point. Most Titanic units are either characters, monsters, or vehicles. So the first Titanic unit of a phase destroyed is worth 3. Looking at you, knights.
Pretty good.
Yeah, its generation looks pretty easy to be honest.
Yeah,
I
so
think
the core thing here is that it works on friendly and enemy
yeah,
units, right? And one thing that I was, sort of, I guess, anticipating in the build up to this is I thought it was going to work on friendly world leader units and enemy units. Crucially, it's just any units. So if you have allies, like we just did a video this week talking about allies like knights and stuff,
yeah,
those armigers, which as we established were pretty good choices. That first one that dies is getting you 2 points, and the next one's getting you one. Or if they die in separate, is it phases? It's phase, right?
yeah, it's like
Yeah. So if they die in separate phases, awesome, you're getting more points.
yeah.
So great that our allies can net us some little extra points, and that makes me feel really not that bad about firing Karanak up the board going on a solo hunt mission, because if he kills something great, and if he dies, I've just gotten 2 Blood Tide points as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
I love that it incentivizes like a trading gameplay style, which perfect. I think.
Yeah, so it kind of sets you up. It's really interesting. I think there's like a lovely duality here, which we can get into after this. But like, just from reading this, your initial thoughts are like, I want MSU, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But as we get into it, maybe you don't, looking at all the other stuff. But we'll see, right?
Yeah.
So what do these Blood Tide points do? We don't really know when you apply them, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It was a bit unclear in the battle report. One was applied at the end of the movement phase. One was applied at the end of the shooting phase or the start of the charge phase. One was applied at the end of the turn. It could be the end of any phase. I don't know.
Because you collect them, for want of a better word.
Yeah, you tally them up, I think is the wording.
Yeah.
Or you keep a tally, which, yeah. But
because it's like you generate them as units are destroyed, and then at the end of the phase,
bonuses at the
you
end
get
of
your
the phase.
points,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it remains to be seen when you actually apply them. Could be the start of any phase, could be command phase. We don't know really yet because, like, let's be real, Warhammer battle reports have been wrong in the past.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's not take it for
Yeah,
granted
so
that you do it at the start of a phase.
I think, yeah, if there's flexibility to do it throughout the turn, that makes these a lot more powerful. A
Yes,
lot
yeah.
more powerful if you can spot when something's
If
about
they're
to
real.
happen. If they're way
Yeah.
more reactive, aren't they? So that makes them a lot more powerful. But let's hold fire on judgment on that, I think.
It's crazy to me that like there's a situation in which like your enemy could shoot you up, and then like with the anticipation of charging you, and then like you power up in that interim, and they're just like,
Yeah.
oh,
So
this is bad.
let's get started on how we're going to power up then.
Yes,
So
let's.
the first one, which
So we're gonna work from lower cost and work our way up, right?
yes,
So each of these abilities, they cost you a certain amount of Blood Tide points, just to be clear, which you spend from your pool.
yeah.
Now, none of these are cheap, for want of a better word. We haven't seen anything costing 1 Blood Tide point.
Not yet.
But yeah, it starts with what, Jack?
So for the low price of 2 Blood Tithe points, so 2 destroyed units or 1 destroyed character monster vehicle, an army wide 5-up shrug against mortal wounds. Called
From Psychic, though.
Spiteful Nullification. No, all mortal wounds.
Is that all mortal
The
wounds?
wording is mortal wounds.
Oh my god, I thought it was just Psychic.
So that's 2, which is insane to me.
That's very cheap.
Yeah, that's pretty strong.
If I was still worried about being bombed by harpies, I would be less worried now, I guess. Yeah, less worried.
Yeah, I mean, so in the list archetype that we've been enjoying, for want of a better word, for the last like 6 months, the vulnerability of the Termi brick with rune and illusory has been mortal wounds, and I know we're not keeping that, but like 5-up shrug against mortals, we get half of the word bearer's fucking legion trait for 2
For 2 points, right? It seems incredibly cheap. Like, so it's one of those things, right, where you have a situation where a lot of the time, the vast majority of armies you play against, this is going to feel about right in terms of price. Like you're playing someone who has maybe 1 or 2 psychers, or I think Mark Whitaker coined the phrase of casual mortal wounds. Armies that have like, we'll say, A Master of Executions, he's casual mortal wounds, right? That kind of an idea. Or, I mean, into New Imperial Guard with those Casterkin, I'll take this
Yeah.
defense, yes,
Yeah.
please. But so like it's gonna feel about right in terms of price there. Okay, 2 for an ability that activates when I'm getting hit by very specific units in my opponent's army.
Yeah.
However, you come into the matchup of Grey Knights or Thousand Suns or other psychic heavy armies, and it's just a completely different thing. Because for 2 points, this is a game winning ability against those
Could
armies.
be a little bit handy.
Could be a little bit nuts, yeah. Yeah.
So-
Very good so far at the starts.
Yeah. So up next for the cost, and I should note, all of these buffs are when you bought them, they are applied until the end of the game,
Not just the one unit,
not just
the whole army.
army wide and until the end of the game.
I guess it won't apply to your allies if you have allies in there, right?
No, it is World Eaters units.
But it's wild that like I read it. The first time I read them, you speed read these things and you're like, oh wow, cool, 5-up shrug. And in my head, I was like, yeah, on one unit for one phase.
Nope.
It's like not bad, not bad. I read it properly and I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
that is so strong.
So
But yeah.
that one's called Spiteful Nullification because I'm not sure I said it. The next one, and all these costs are from the battle report today. The next one is 3 Blood Tithe points for Rage Fueled Invigoration, which is basically +1 to charges, army wide until the end of the game. Again, pretty handy. It's good we do a lot of charging. It's quite simple. I mean, like, we do a lot of charging. This makes it easier. It still means
3 points for my whole army to have the effect of violent urgency on them.
Yeah.
No problem.
So it makes deep strike charges still 8 inches, so I still don't think it's something to build around. But
However,
it's nice.
it makes deep strike charges with blood slaughters coming out of reserve with the harpoons.
6 inches.
6 inches, yeah, and other things like that, right? There's other little cheeky benefits as we'll get into it, but it's a bit wild. Like, so we'll talk about it in a later video, I guess, coming out later this week of the 3d6 charge for the berserkers with the icon.
Yeah.
This pairs so beautifully with it. I think there's going to be some armies that build around this, right? Like if you're building really heavy alpha strike, you're going to build in such a way that this is probably the first one that you activate. Whereas if you're building more durability based lists, it might be something else, like the 5+ against mortals, right? So it's interesting.
And as you mentioned, we'll go into sort of synergies a bit in a later video, but there are some cool synergies that we can definitely exploit with this one. But it is quite a simple one, as I said. So then we've got a couple of ones that cost 4 Blood Tithe points each. The first one is called Wrathful Devotion, and that is just a 6-up shrug, army wide until the end of the game, against everything.
So good.
Everyone has a pocket apothecary now.
Yeah, it's so good. I can't believe that we're getting that.
This is a hot take. Who needs Berserker Surgeons when you've got this?
Oh, that is a hot take. I mean,
flamed.
Yeah, that is a hot take. I'll take him for a cool model, but I mean, if all my boys are just bullets are bouncing off them, that's fine. This is a great ability, though, right? I mean,
it's like 16% durability, isn't it? On everything.
On units, like if you're bringing Angron, it's very, very potent. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the other one that costs 4, which I believe you liked when you first saw it, is just permanent Wild Fury everywhere.
Yeah.
XP on everything until the end of the game. It's called Warp Blades. Obviously, as we were saying earlier, as we were saying pre-show, I guess, in some armies, less useful. So Custodes, potentially, will be less useful just because a lot of our stuff is looking to be AP2 anyway, which will push a lot of them to their invulns anyway. So, but then this is part of the nuance of picking the order.
What I really like about this one is that, like you say, it is specific into some armies, but it swings on the other side, right? Where you can know that as soon as I get to this level where I can power up, I can get to the stage where I'm pushing them onto their invulnerable save, going straight through their armor.
Yeah.
Knights, for example, right? Most of our things are AP2. They live in that area, Pushing them to AP3 immediately makes combat fights against knights so much more attractive.
Or AP4 and then just go.
Or AP4 and going straight through. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like being able to push those thresholds. But even things I think like I know we're gonna take spawn for different reasons, but firing an extra like negative on the spawn as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's
Well,
pretty crazy.
yeah. I mean, and we're still gonna have decent access to AP3. So like
Hmm.
Terminators still have cursed weapons, so they're gonna be AP3. That pushes them to AP4. And there's a lot of
It's I
things.
think
Yeah,
it's a really powerful one.
yeah, for sure. And it's only 4, which is still like first 2 turns, a character, vehicle, monster dies. You've got 4 straight away.
It makes Angron's sweep as well even better.
Yes.
that
Uh,
probably that probably pips his sweep over the smash, right?
Potentially,
Yeah,
because
potentially.
yeah, yeah.
Now, if you combine that with one another of the
Another.
Blood Tithe abilities, it would definitely pip the sweep.
So, um, the next one is called Martial Excellence. It costs 5 Blood Tithe points, and it just gives us exploding sixes to hit.
Yep.
Which is basically what we have had for. It's been one of our rules for all time, basically. So, Death to False Emperor, or now it's once and
Let the galaxy
once and slaughter.
once
So
and
that one's
slaughter.
there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
exploding sixes to hit.
Expensive
It is
for what it is,
expensive.
but given it's well costed as well because of the amount of the typical volume that we get on our units attack
Yeah,
profiles, right?
yeah. With the volume we get, it ends up being quite a big multiplier, I think.
Yeah, like
Um,
that would proc what is that on Angron? Like 6 extra
well,
hits on
yeah,
average?
and on average for a charging berserker, it's an extra attack
Yeah.
or an
Yeah.
extra hit, right? So, it,
Which is significant,
which is
right?
decent, yeah.
And like when I think about the new arcs attachments, certain units being able to slot into them that weren't before and get these abilities, a brass scorpion with exploding sixes to hit is an attractive
I
proposition.
mean, a Lord of Skulls with
Yeah,
the
I
sweep,
think
the
the
damage
Lord of
2 sweep
Skulls looks
profile.
really good
Yeah.
now. Really good. Yeah, the Scorpion, the Lord of Skulls, and the Kaitan are all big on my radar
Yeah.
again. Even like some of those tanks, right? Like, is there a world in which the Spartan with a 6-up feel no pain? Is there a world where that can exist? I don't think
I
so.
mean, the Lord of
But
Skulls. The
it
Lord of
gives up
Skulls.
3 Blood Tide points when it
The
dies.
Lord of Skulls is 2-up, 5-up. You can give it a 6-up for not that much, and then exploding sixes to hit in melee with a damage
Yeah,
2 sweep that's also AP3. Like,
it's crazy, crazy. Yeah.
um,
So
so then
that's the ones that we've seen, right?
we've got one
Oh,
more.
there's one
There is
more,
there
of
is
course.
one quite important one more that we've seen, um, which costs 6, so it is the most expensive one we've seen so far. Um, it's called Reborn in Blood, and it's been hinted at fairly heavily by Warcom, and now we've finally seen it in action multiple times. Um, which is basically that if Angron has been destroyed, you can spend 6 Blood Tithe points, and he goes back into Deep Strike on 8 wounds and can come in at the end of your next movement phase. As like in Deep Strike, so 9 inches away, all of that good stuff. And
Angron's a trap.
on 8 wounds, he still is middle bracket and therefore still has 11 attacks because apparently one bracket down takes him from 12 to 11. So
Yeah, sure.
fine. Um, so
Yeah.
uh, yes, so obviously there's the thing 8 wounds, not that great. He has 18 wounds to start with, as we've all seen on Warhammer Community. Means he can't be obscured, so there's no dropping him in the backfield and hide or dropping him behind a building and hiding him. Um, it also, at the moment, is looking like he is only going to get. Realistically, we can maybe get a 7 inch charge out of Deep Strike with him, which is a strat, and we'll go on to that in combination with Rage Field Invigoration, the +1 charges. But it's not. It doesn't feel like a strat to build around, and 6 is very hefty for like a fucking coin flip
Yeah.
charge, right?
6 is an awful lot of points. When you look at the other abilities that we've kind of spoken about here, it it's a novelty to be able to bring him back, but you could have a situation where you spend all your Blood Tide points bringing him back, and
Just dies again.
he just dies again. Like
Yeah,
it's not impossible that you bring him back and he gets like Auspec scanned off the board.
yeah. So
You know?
So yeah, crucial to note is that to use this in the first place, he would have had to have died and therefore generated. We're assuming 2, so one for the unit destroyed and one for him being a character slash monster. And then if he dies again, you get another 2. So it's a net -2, sort of. If you want to look at it that way. Crucial to note is that you can use this multiple times, as they showcased on the battle report, which is quite funny.
Yeah,
As you
it's
say, it's a bit of a
cute,
novelty.
right?
Yeah,
Like you're not gonna
you're not going to
you're
play
not
around.
gonna do it if you're playing competitively and
I
have like a
Yeah.
brain.
So I think we can get on to whether or not we reckon Angron's going to be competitive or not in our units video. But I think there are probably plays with this. If Angron is taken competitively, there are going to be plays to deny, assassinate, or bring it down.
Yeah, because he counts as not having died, right?
Yes, he counts as not being destroyed. Um, Obviously, you
Yeah.
still have to bring him on, and it is quite like situational because like you'd want to be going second, or well, you wouldn't even necessarily want to be going second. You just drop him on the other side of the board, I guess, and like leave him there, and then that's just
hmm
denying what like 4 points for bring it down, or
So
like 4 points for assassinate if he's the warlord. So
yeah,
it's not there are plays, but it's a gamey thing rather than like a strat. I think like an
yeah.
actual like thing to build around.
I'm not overly impressed by it. Um, I think all the other abilities are really attractive,
Yeah,
and I would rather have them.
for sure.
Angron for me doesn't do enough,
Mm,
to warrant
yeah,
his resurrection.
yeah. So yeah, okay. So
But we can get onto him in the
yeah,
units video.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think so. Um, so as we've said or hinted, I don't think this is all of them because there's only six, and I
and
mean
there should be eight
it's
because
two
that's
more for
just
it to
how
be
they do
really
things.
fluffy.
Yeah,
So there might be a couple that weren't showcased. I have no
I
idea
would
what they
say
are.
like
There's a couple
just
missing
just
from the
looking at
unit
these,
list.
right? A lot of them are translations of the Chaos Space Marine stratagems that we currently have access to.
Yeah.
Like Wild Fury's in there. The is it Fury of Khorne, the exploding sixes? Or no,
Fury
sorry,
Corn
Stoke
is
the
what it's
Nails.
yeah. So Stoke the Nails, yeah, it puts us in slaughter, return early, and
Yeah,
strength.
so there's two there that we've had before.
Yeah,
The extra charge rolls, sure, that's like violent urgency baked in,
yeah,
and then you've got two different survivability traits.
which I like
It,
because we've never had that
I
before
do,
in
yeah, I
Warhammer
like them
Fantasy.
too. It wouldn't shock me if Kill Main Burn was in there in some capacity, the 6-inch consolidate.
Yeah,
If it was like maybe spend, although
yeah,
I
I'm
guess
not
that one's a
sure
bit,
because yeah, I think
yeah,
that might be a strat that just we have, which we'll get onto. I think that's more likely to be a strat than an army wide until the end of
yeah.
the game thing because that would be disgusting.
It would be one of
Um,
it would go against the grain, right? Where it's like you use this, you spend these points once, and like it happens on
yeah,
one unit,
yeah,
or maybe the army for that phase or something. But it goes against the grain of everything else, so maybe
everything
not.
you've
I
done.
guess we have
Yeah,
to look at it from the perspective of
so
things that are applied for the
yeah,
rest of the
so
game.
the two that were in the leaks that haven't appeared so far, and I don't know how realistic these are because they just seem like way more powerful. So I would wonder how much points they cost. Is plus one
Yeah, and there was
attack.
already like some stuff from the leaks that's been proven
Yeah.
incorrect today, right? So
So
yeah,
yeah.
don't put too much stock in this, but we'll
No,
see.
but so the two that were rumored but we haven't seen are plus one attack army wide. That might have been misconstrued and is just our legion trait. And sixes to hit auto wound is another one, which is possible, maybe.
That is one of the strats that we currently have.
That's Fury of Chord, so that's in the base Chaos Space Marine book at the moment.
Seems really strong though for an
It
army-wide
does, but
all
I
game
wonder if it
ability.
might be another five, for example.
Yeah, I would sit that at maybe a 6,
Yeah, so
to be
it'd
honest.
be an expensive one, and I think we probably. So as I say, I don't know. I would expect two more. That is more likely, I feel, than plus one attack, and I think we also are maybe getting another one at a cheaper price point. Just looking at the distribution at the moment, but I have no idea what it
Yeah,
would be.
like two twos,
Like,
two fours, two fives, maybe.
yeah, well, yeah, I'd expect two or three for one of them, but I don't know
I think that makes
how
sense.
what they would pitch that at. Um, but yeah,
I would like to see a movement one put in there.
yeah, although I think we have quite a lot of movement.
Me too, but why not more?
Why not both?
Why not more?
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
interesting. I don't think we need things that boost our killiness anymore, which
no,
is why if one of them
that's
was
fair.
plus an attack, I'd be like, yeah, that's a bit lame.
That's it's a bit much, yeah.
Yeah.
So, uh, having talked through it, what what are the ones that you're looking at most at the moment? Like what? Obviously, we had this talk a little while ago, and a lot of these are matchup dependent. So, and I love the versatility and flexibility of the system as it looks at the moment because I love that it's almost like an evolution of stratagems, right? Or like it gives you some adaptability on the fly into certain matchups, and that's so good. Like, and it's really
Yeah.
powerful as well. Is being able to cherry pick buffs depending on what you're playing into.
Yeah, for sure. I think it reads as a very simple mechanic, but once you start to think about it, you come to the realization that it's actually very deep and complex because you're balancing this whole new economy system in your games. And you have this really interesting kind of dichotomy where you want some of your units to die for certain things to happen, but you don't want too many things to die
No,
because you want your whole army to power up,
yeah,
right?
and you want the right things to die so that these buffs end up on the already powerful units, right?
Yeah. So one thing that, a phrase that we use a lot is the go turn, right? Where it's the turn that typically your army fully commits to making the plays it needs to make. And I think the Blood Tithe system actually works really well with that concept of having a go turn
Yeah,
because maybe you want to bank up your Blood Tithe points and say, okay, in my go turn, I'm going to have these buffs activated, right? Or maybe you don't, and maybe you play a more staggered game where you're like, I'll use my Blood Tide points as the game goes on and build up some survivability to make
yeah,
sure that I can get there. And then when I do get there, I can start to power up my guys with
yeah,
the other abilities, right? So I think it's there's a fascinating um, sort of mindset that people are going to have to get into where it's like, how do I balance my buffs around my units? When is the right time to apply them? Like, if I give my guys this offensive output now, do they need that to get the job that they're going to do? Do they need that like to kill this unit? Or would it actually be better to give them a survivability buff? Because they're going to kill those units anyway,
yeah,
you know? But then it's like, well, if they overkill everything and then your units die in return, you're like, cool, I can still spend those points on doing something else, right? So it's really interesting. I think there's a lot going on there with it.
yeah.
And as a mechanic, it's very unique, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just love the flexibility of it because, like we were saying, like spiteful nullification, they're 5 up against mortal wounds, against Grey Knights, Thousand Suns, Nids, Eldar, even to a certain extent. Maybe guards now. That's going to be really useful. So maybe you pick that as one of your first ones, and you can get it off fairly quickly because it only costs two, and then that allows you to get there. And then in terms of killiness, I think like we're looking to be a late game army still. I think we are at the moment largely. Like we have the capability to do some Alpha Strike stuff, but I think we are broadly a late game army. That's where we like start to shine, turn three onwards.
Yeah, I think people will initially, as people tend to do when new World Leader rules come out, they're like, "Cool, what's the easiest way to alpha strike someone?"
Yeah,
Because that's kind of how it is, right?
yeah,
And then we'll run that for like 3 months, and then people will get like, "Okay, actually, you know what? That will get me a 3-2 comfortably at a tournament." But once I go up into the big leagues,
yeah.
people are like, "Cool, there's this thing called a screen in a
Screen,
game.
yeah,
I'm going to use it against you." And then your really expensive units are going to trade out my Crute and all
yeah.
die.
All
And
scripts,
you're like, "Oh, but I got loads of Blood Tide points, but I have 4 units left in my
yeah,
army."
yeah,
And jackals.
yeah. So I guess that's kind of the other thing as well, right? Is that I think it looks like it's going to be quite easy to generate points. I think there's going to be some nuance in terms of list building because I think we're not going to want to concentrate everything like MSU we've mentioned, but also the buffs are obviously going to be like way more powerful on bigger units. So there's you have to make that balance, and then you want some monsters, vehicles, characters to like get some more blood type points quicker, maybe.
Mhm.
So like we already talked about the baby knights. Like demon engines could be some of them could be pretty good as
Yeah,
we talked
yeah.
about.
I actually. So I guess we'll get into when we want to talk about specific units that really benefit from the blood tide points. But
Yeah,
one to put a pin on for that discussion in a minute or two is the blood slaughter because
yeah,
I have a lot of thoughts on why that unit is
yeah,
going to be real popular in our armies. But yeah, it's really interesting. Like your unit selection is going to be this mini meta game in itself because I think it's kind of like the Alpha Strike thing I just talked about, right? Because so the go-to, and I know Jamie's really hype on this, is like getting like these weird like suicide units like jackals and stuff and single spawn. And I get that because it's like, yeah, cool. Those can achieve all those really nice new secondaries that we have by dying on objectives. And like can get us Blood Tithe points now, which is going to fuel our army. And if someone shoots a single spawn and it gets you a Blood Tithe point, you're like, this is amazing. But you're going to get to the point in the tournament where maybe you've won 2 or 3 games and your opponent is going to have a brain and they're going to be like, you know what, I'm not going to shoot that spawn because I'm not going to power up your army for you and I'm not going to give you victory points and it's just not going to be worth it. So I think like there's going to be this real interesting balance between like, because you're still, the thing is, right, that's not like, it's not black and white. You're not going to have no units like that, because the thing is, if I bring a unit of like 3 spawn and I just run them at you at the start of the game, I'm like, well, you have to do something about them. And then if you kill them, I'm like, you fool, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Right? So it's interesting in terms of the units you pick. I think jackals are going to be a very attractive early doors kind of pusher, that they run out on objectives. They're like, hey, look at me, I'm raising a banner. Oh no, you shot me. And the berserkers are like, let's go.
Yeah.
It's really thematic and fluffy as well, right? It's like,
I
oh yeah,
love it.
you know, grist into the mill.
I love it.
Yeah, big fan, big fan.
So, okay. So we talked about Blood Tithe. We talked very briefly about Relentless Rage. I think we should probably wrap this one up here. And then I'm not sure which order these will come out in, but we are going to do another one on units and points and what we've inferred from the video about that. We're going to do another one about stratagems and relics because we've seen quite a few of them, the strats in particular. And then we're going to do a roundup, I think, and just that'll probably be the first one to come out. But
Yeah.
through the magic of time travel. So and
tune in tomorrow for units.
Tomorrow, maybe yesterday, to
yeah
talk about to hear about our general thoughts on, I guess, army construction. We've teased a bit there, and then sort of how everything hangs together with Orcs of Omen and stratagems and all of that good stuff.
So to summarize, Blood Tithe, very strong, awesome, very flavorful. What's your favorite one, Jack? Before we close it out, what's your favorite ability?
6-up shrug.
Yeah, fair.
I love that we've got something defensive at last.
It does slap. Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of those exploding 6s to hit. To be honest, yeah, I think it's really good.
Okay, so most importantly though, guys, stay healthy, stay safe.